The first thing I noticed was the smoke, twisting lazy through the pines like someone had a right to be here. My name's Wade Langston, and I'd just bought this cabin 2 weeks prior off a half-drunk clerk in Leadville who swore had been empty for years. Said the last surveyor got spooked by a cougar and never came back. But there she was, a woman, sitting on the porch like it was Sunday morning and I was the guest. She wore a long gray shawl and had one leg tucked under her like she'd been waiting, not resting. She wasn't startled to see me, didn't even rise, just nodded once, real slow. "I've been keeping this cabin ready," she said. I stood there like a fool, holding the deed in one hand and my saddlebag in the other. "This place is mine," I told her. "I bought it outright." She tilted her head, the hint of a smile playing at her mouth. Not mocking, more like she already knew what I'd say. "Maybe on paper, but you ain't the first man to say that, and the paper never lasts out here." I should have turned around. I should have told her to leave, but there was something in her eyes, not fear, not challenge, just a deep, rooted calm that made me feel like the trespasser. "Name's Ivy Shepard. I've been waiting 20 years. "For what?" I asked. "For the man this place belongs to." I laughed then, a dry little huff. "That's me, I suppose." She looked at the firelight flickering through the cracked window pane. "Maybe, or maybe you're just another fella passing through with a deed in one hand and no notion of what this place carries." It got under my skin the way she said that, like she'd seen right through me. Missouri, the killings, the long rides and false names. I'd come here thinking I could finally outrun it all. "I'm not here to cause trouble," I said. She stood then, slow and deliberate. "Good, then don't." I didn't argue. I didn't stake my claim or drag her off that porch. Instead, I stabled my horse and built a second fire in the small hearth besides hers. There was a moment that night, long after she'd gone to the small cot in the corner, when I looked at the flames and realized something strange. I hadn't felt alone since arriving. Ivy said one more thing before turning in. She paused at the ladder to the loft and said, "The last 3 men who tried to own this land, none of them are buried proper." Then she climbed up and left me with the fire, and I didn't sleep a wink. Come morning, I stepped outside to get my bearings, make sure this wasn't all some dream maybe. But the chill in the air was real, and so was the second pair of boots by the door, hers, dusted clean. Inside, the cabin didn't look abandoned, not even close. There were dried herbs hanging from the rafters, quilts folded at the foot of the cot, a kettle already warming on the stove. She'd been living here, not camping, not squatting, living, like she belonged more than I ever could. That's when I noticed the hats, 3 of 'em mounted above the mantel, old weathered felt, one torn through clean like it caught a bullet and the bullet stayed. I pointed. "Those yours?" She was chopping something into a skillet, didn't even glance up. "No, they were the others." "The others what?" "Men like you," she said, "who came with paper and plans. One brought a lawyer, one brought a rifle, third didn't bring nothing but a grin, thought charm would get him further than land deeds." I waited for her to go on. She didn't. "You said they ain't buried proper," I said. "What happened to 'em?" She slid potatoes into the skillet. "They didn't keep the promise." "What promise?" She gave me a look then, not hard, just long, like she was weighing something in me, trying to decide if I was worth the weight of truth.
Finally, she said, "This land only takes what it's given. It remembers. You try to take more than you're owed, it gives back in kind." "Did you kill him?" I asked. That made her pause. A shadow crossed her face. Not guilt, memory maybe. Loss. No, but I didn't stop it either. I should have packed up right then. I should have taken that as a sign. But instead, I found myself curious, drawn, like whatever story she held, I was already inside it. I leaned against the doorframe. "You said you've been waiting 20 years. For what?" "For someone who'd listen. Someone who ain't just looking for timber and rock. Someone who might understand that ownership's got nothing to do with signatures and everything to do with stewardship." I looked around at the care taken, the quiet order of the place. The land wasn't hers by law, but she'd kept it alive, even sacred. I stepped closer to the hearth, eyes on those hats. I asked, "You buried 'em?" She nodded. "What was left?" I don't know why I said it. Maybe I was looking for common ground. Maybe I wanted her to see me different. I didn't come here to take anything, just wanted quiet. She looked up then. "You didn't come here to live, Wade Langston. You came here to hide." That name on her lips hit like a slap. I hadn't told her my last name. Not yet.
The skillet sizzled while I sat silent, wondering how she knew. That name, the way she said it, not like someone guessing, but like someone remembering. I finally asked, "Who told you?" She didn't answer right away, just brought me a tin plate and sat across from me, calm as a cat warming its paws. "Didn't need telling," she said. "Man who flinches at his own name's been running for more than just distance." I ate slow, chewed each bite like it might turn to gravel. I'd spent a year and a half pretending Wade Langston died back in Missouri, and now this mountain woman, with her quiet hands and haunted eyes, had peeled it all back in 2 days. You ever heard of the Whitmores?" I asked. She nodded. "St. Joseph banking family. Big, proud, mean." I looked down at my plate. "I killed 2 of their sons." Stillness then. Not a flinch, not a gasp. Just her looking at me like I'd finally said what she already knew. "They were dragging a girl behind a barn, drunk. She was maybe 15. I didn't think, just acted." I ran my thumb along the rim of the tin, remembering the way the pistol kicked in my hand, the shock on their faces, the girl sobbing into her dress. I took her to a church elder, rode all night, figured the law would sort it. She asked, "Did it?" I laughed, bitter. Law belongs to whoever has money to twist. Whitmore's twisted it fast, had wanted posters up by the next sunrise. Murder, they called it. Ambush. Never mind the truth. I hadn't spoken this aloud in over a year. Felt strange, like hauling up something long buried. I expected her to ask why I didn't just fight it out, or ride south, or keep running. But Ivy said, "You did right, and the right thing can still damn you in a place like this." We sat a while longer, listening to the fire pop. Then she stood, pulled on her shawl, and said, "Would you like to see what you really bought, Wade Langston?" There was no accusation in her voice, just an invitation. I followed her out the door, into the pines. The wind was light. The path was narrow, and I realized then
Whatever I thought I'd come here to escape, it had only brought me closer to whatever this was. And she was leading me straight to the heart of it.
We walked for near half an hour, maybe more. No trail, no markers, just Ivy pushing through fur and underbrush like she'd done it 100 times, maybe 1,000. I didn't speak, neither did she. The quiet between us had its own kind of weight, not heavy, just settled, like stones laid in a riverbed. Eventually, she stopped at a limestone bluff with moss crawling up the base like it had secrets to tell. She knelt and brushed aside a tangle of vine. Beneath it, a split in the rock, no wider than a door frame. "I was 10 when my father first showed me this," she said. "His father showed him, and so on. This land's not rich in crops or cattle, but under it, there's something else." We slipped inside. The narrow path opened into a hidden cavern, and my breath caught. It wasn't just silver. It was veined, living. The walls shimmered faintly in the low lantern light Ivy held, like frost on the inside of a whiskey bottle. "Natural silver," she said. "So pure you don't even need to smelt most of it." I reached out. The vein ran like a root through the stone, thick, uninterrupted, generational. "I never knew," I whispered. "No one does, not unless they're shown." She stepped back, letting me take it in. "This land's been in my blood longer than the name Shepard. When the government sold parcels, my folks couldn't read nor write, lost claim without a fight. But we stayed. My father said a man can lose land on paper and still live like he owns it, if he treats it right." I turned to her. "That's what the promise is?" She nodded. "To protect this place, keep it hidden, share it only with someone who understands why it matters." The silver glowed like a serpent under glass. Not just wealth, but power, the kind that ruins men. I said nothing, just looked at her, really looked. She was the land in a way, hard, quiet, beautiful in the kind of way that doesn't fade, just deepens with time. Then came the sound. Hoofbeats. Faint at first, distant, then louder. Ivy kerned, face gone still. "They're not here for the silver," she said softly. "They're here for me."
Ivy snuffed the lantern with a pinch of her fingers, and we both froze in the dark. The hoofbeats settled somewhere near the cabin. Then came voices, low, sharp, men who knew how to move in places they weren't welcome. I leaned toward her. "Whitmore's?" She nodded. "They sent 'em months ago. Lost the trail. Guess it picked up again." "You sure they're not here for the vein?" "They don't know it exists. They think I'm hiding something else." She didn't have to say it. Me. We crept back through the narrow crack in the limestone, crouched beneath firs just uphill from the cabin. I counted 5 men, all hard-looking, all armed. One held my saddlebag like a dog sniffing a rabbit hole. "You sure he came here?" one asked. "His horse did. That's his gear. He's here somewhere." They stormed the cabin. Ivy didn't flinch, not even when one of them kicked over her rocking chair or tore open the quilt she'd spent years sewing. Her mouth was a thin line. Her hands were still. "What do they want from you?" I whispered. "They want to break what they don't understand. Always have." I watched as one man pried up a floorboard and cursed. "Nothing. Just damn pine knots and dirt." That's when the idea hit me. I leaned toward Ivy. "What if they think they found what they came for?" She frowned. The silver. We give 'em a reason to leave." She studied me for a long breath. "And what happens when they come back with a whole crew, picks and mules and maps?" "They won't. Not if we show 'em just enough to think it's a rumor, a lucky strike. Then let 'em chase it out of state." She hesitated, then reached into her coat and pulled a small pouch from the lining. Flakes of silver inside, raw and bright. "You sure you want to tie yourself to this?" she asked. "I already am," I said. She gave the faintest nod. "Then let's make sure they leave with a story good enough to chase." We backed away, low and careful. I led the descent this time, taking the long way down the western slope, the old cattle route, long grown over. Ivy followed without sound. Before we disappeared into the pines, I looked back once. The cabin was still standing, but the men inside didn't know. They'd just stirred up the very roots of the mountain, and they were about to be led straight into its teeth.
The cavern air was damp with mineral scent, silver dust catching the lantern light like fireflies. I thought we had time. Figured Ivy could lead 'em off while I doubled back and sealed the truth behind a landslide or powder charge. But then I heard 'em. Footsteps. Not hurried. Not lost. And then a voice I'd prayed was dead. Well, I'll be damned. Wade Langston, in the flesh. I turned slow. Marcus Whitmore. His face was half ruined, jaw twisted by an old burn, one eye clouded white. But I knew that voice, smooth and venomous like oil on a fire. He'd been the older brother, the meanest of 'em. Folks said he'd died in some mining accident. Apparently not. "Didn't reckon you'd run all the way into God's pocket," he said, stepping into the chamber like he owned it. Behind him were two more men, same crew from the cabin, guns drawn, eyes greedy. One whistled low when he saw the walls. "Silver," Marcus said, dragging his fingers along the vein. "No wonder you crawled up into this rock. Always figured you for the thieving kind." My voice was steady. "That's not why I'm here." He smiled, or tried to. The scar twisted it sideways. "Don't matter. All I see is you cornered, and me standing on a pile of silver with a gun in my hand." That's when I heard it. A soft clatter to my left. Too soft for them to notice, but I knew it wasn't the wind. Ivy. She'd circled back into the cavern somehow, but in doing so, she'd knocked loose a small rock. It skittered across the floor. Marcus turned. "Who else is here?" He motioned one of his men toward the sound. I didn't dare look, didn't dare give her away, but she was moving, fast and low, deeper into the rock. They hadn't seen her, not yet. "She's no one," I said, stepping forward. "Just a local. I paid her to help haul gear, that's all." Marcus didn't believe me. Not fully, but greed made men stupid. I could see the calculation flicker behind his one good eye. "She know the path out?" I said. "She's got a pouch of the good stuff. Said she'd hide it in the trees. If you hurry, you might catch her." The two men exchanged glances. Marcus gave a nod. They took off after her. And just like that, Ivy disappeared into the mountain's ribs with a pouch of silver, bait for the hungry. Marcus turned back to me, slower now. "Still the noble fool, huh? Still putting your neck out for strays and savages?" I cocked my head. "You still so sure you're the one holding the gun?" He narrowed his eyes. But I wasn't bluffing anymore, because I wasn't the one being hunted now. They were.
Marcus squinted toward the dark where his men had gone, maybe realizing he just sent them into a trap, but it was too late now. "You always were a smug bastard," he muttered. I stepped in closer. My revolver was already up, steady as I'd ever held it. The click of the hammer was the only sound between us. "Drop it," I said. He smirked. "You won't shoot me." I said, "You're right. I don't need to." He frowned, confused. "That passage they ran down," I nodded toward the narrow split in the rock, "ends in a 100-foot drop. No way down, no ledge. You just keep walking until there's no more floor." Real fear flickered in his good eye. "You're lying." "Am I?" We stood there, still and locked, the cavern's silver glow washing us both in cold light. Marcus's fingers twitched near his sidearm, but I stepped forward and cracked him across the temple with the barrel. He crumpled like wet cloth. I holstered the gun and took a breath. A soft footfall behind me. "You didn't kill him," Ivy said. "I don't need to." "You think he'd show you the same mercy?" "No, but that's why it means something." She knelt and bound his wrists with a strip of canvas. Her face was unreadable, but I saw the approval in her eyes. Not warm, not soft, but solid. Trusted. Together we dragged Marcus toward the far wall of the chamber, where the earth dipped into shadow. I rolled him onto his side and looked at Ivy. "You sure no one else knows?" "I'm the last who remembers. My father kept no maps. We'll bury it like he taught me." I helped her wedge stones against the entrance, sealing the path to the deeper vein. Ivy scattered a pouch of tailings near the outer slope, just enough to keep the rumor alive. The truth, though, the real truth, would stay where it belonged. Before we left, Ivy leaned over Marcus, unconscious and bleeding, and whispered, "You came here for silver, but this mountain only gives to those who serve it." By sundown, we had him tied over his own horse, turned back toward the flats with a sack of worthless ore and a head full of bad guesses. "You think he'll believe it?" Ivy asked. I nodded. Men like him always do. They'd rather chase ghosts than accept what's right in front of them. She looked back toward the cabin, then toward the ridgeline. "What now?" she asked. That question hung longer than I liked, because I wasn't sure yet how to answer it.
We sat on the porch that evening, side by side, watching the last of the sun bleed over the ridge. The air smelled like pine and wood smoke, and just a hint of silver dust still clinging to our clothes. Ivy had rebuilt the rocker, same one they'd kicked over. She ran her fingers along the smoothed wood like it was something sacred. She said, "My father told me once, when the right man comes, I'd know it because he wouldn't ask what the promise was, he'd feel it." I looked at her then, fully. "I'm not your blood," I said. "I wasn't born to this land." She shook her head. "Doesn't matter. The land doesn't care about blood. It cares about care, about keeping quiet what's meant to stay quiet, about protecting things worth protecting." I thought of Missouri, of the girl crying in the dirt, of all the men I'd failed and the ones I'd had to stop. I thought maybe I'd wandered all the way out here not just to hide, but to find something I didn't know I was missing. "Do you want me to stay?" I asked. Her answer came without hesitation. "I want you to keep the promise. With me." The quiet swilled around us. That kind of stillness you only find when something big is ended or something new is about to begin. And I knew this wasn't a refuge anymore. It was home. We didn't speak much after that. Didn't need to. Ivy brought out the old ledger her father had kept, names written in neat block letters, each one who'd ever watched over the land. She handed me the pencil. I added my name beneath hers. Wade Langston. A man who'd once run, now rooted. We sat there long after dark,
the fire behind us and stars opening overhead. Not guarding a treasure, but keeping a promise. Together.